Imagine this. You're hundreds of miles from land. The sun is beginning to disappear behind the horizon. The engine has just failed. Your radio is silent, the wind is getting stronger, and somewhere beyond the darkness, waves taller than houses are already moving toward you. If help doesn't arrive before sunset, there may never be another sunrise. Most people think the greatest danger at sea is the storm itself, but sailors know something different. The real enemy begins after the sun goes down, because once darkness falls in the middle of the ocean, the sea becomes a completely different world. Distances disappear, directions become meaningless, every wave sounds like another disaster waiting to happen, and the human mind begins to fight an enemy it cannot see. Tonight, we're going to experience one of the longest nights imaginable, not because the Earth stopped turning, but because every minute felt like an eternity. This is the story of one ordinary couple, one sinking yacht, and a night that seemed like it would never end. In the summer of 1973, Maurice and Maralyn Bailey set out on what many people would have called the adventure of a lifetime. The British couple had spent years preparing for an ambitious voyage around the world aboard their 31-foot yacht, the Maralyn. Unlike professional explorers, they weren't chasing fame. They simply dreamed of seeing the world from the sea. For months, everything went according to plan. They crossed oceans, visited tropical islands, watched sunsets that most people only see in postcards. Life aboard the small yacht was peaceful. Each morning began with the sound of waves gently tapping against the hull. Each evening ended beneath a sky overflowing with stars. The ocean felt endless, but never threatening. At least, not yet. By early March 1973, they were sailing across the Pacific Ocean, one of the largest and most isolated bodies of water on Earth. To understand just how remote they were, imagine standing in the middle of a continent with no roads, no cities, no people for hundreds of miles in every direction. Now replace the ground with deep blue water, nearly 5 kilometers deep. That was their world. If something went wrong, rescue wouldn't be minutes away. It might not come at all. Still, experienced sailors know that danger rarely announces itself. Sometimes it arrives without warning. Sometimes it comes from below. On March 4th, the calm was shattered. Without any sign of danger, something slammed violently into the bottom of the yacht. The impact was so powerful that Maurice was thrown off balance. The entire boat shook. For a brief moment, they had no idea what had happened. Then they saw it. A whale, most likely a sperm whale. The enormous animal had accidentally, or perhaps curiously, collided with the yacht. A modern cargo ship might barely notice such an impact. But a small fiberglass yacht was another story. Water immediately began pouring into the hull. At first, it didn't seem catastrophic. Maybe the pumps could keep up. Maybe they could patch the damage. Maybe they still had time. But the sea has a way of turning hope into urgency. Within minutes, the water level continued rising. The pumps couldn't keep pace. Every bucket they emptied was replaced by another. Every minute, the yacht sat lower in the water. Maurice understood the truth before he said it aloud. The boat was dying. For sailors, a vessel isn't just transportation. It's home. It's protection. It's survival. Watching it sink is like watching the ground disappear beneath your feet. There was no time to mourn. They launched their inflatable life raft, grabbed emergency supplies, collected whatever food they could reach. A few cans, some fresh water, basic survival equipment, a fishing spear, a small first aid kit, and one precious emergency locator beacon, far less advanced than today's technology. Everything else would soon belong to the Pacific Ocean. As they climbed into the tiny raft, they looked back one final time. The Maralyn had carried them across thousands of miles of open water. Now it slowly tilted, slipped beneath the surface, and vanished forever. There was no explosion, no dramatic music, just bubbles. Then silence. The ocean looked exactly as it had before. It was as if the yacht had never existed. That's one of the cruelest things about the sea. It rarely leaves evidence behind. Now, the couple floated alone, a tiny yellow raft drifting across one of the largest oceans on Earth. If you looked down from an airplane, you probably wouldn't even notice them. Their world had suddenly shrunk to just a few square meters of rubber floating above an endless abyss. At first, adrenaline kept them moving. They inventoried supplies, checked for leaks, inflated backup chambers, secured drinking water. They stayed busy because staying busy meant not thinking. Not yet. The sun was still high enough to offer comfort. Daylight has a strange psychological effect. As long as you can see the horizon, your brain believes you're still connected to the world, even if there's nothing there. But hour by hour, the light began to fade. The brilliant blue ocean slowly turned dark gray. Clouds gathered, the wind stiffened, the temperature dropped. Then something happened that every experienced sailor fears. The horizon disappeared. On land, you almost always know where the world ends. You can see trees, mountains, buildings. Even at night, distant lights remind you that civilization still exists. Out here, there was nothing. No coastline, no ships, no moonlight breaking through the clouds. Only darkness. The kind of darkness that makes you question whether your eyes are even open. As sunset faded into night, every sound became louder. The splash of water against the raft, the whistle of the wind, the creaking of rubber under pressure. Every noise demanded attention. Every shadow felt alive. Maurice later admitted that the first night was psychologically worse than the sinking itself. During the day, they had a problem to solve. At night, they had only uncertainty. The Pacific Ocean is enormous. Covering more than 165 million square kilometers, it spans nearly 1/3 of Earth's surface. Standing inside that tiny raft, surrounded by invisible waters stretching beyond imagination, they realized something terrifying. If nobody knew exactly where they were, they could drift for weeks or months without ever seeing another human being. The waves grew larger after sunset, not because the ocean suddenly changed, but because darkness distorted every sense. Without a visible horizon, it became impossible to judge the size of incoming waves. A 3-meter swell could feel like a mountain. A gentle roll could feel like the beginning of disaster. The raft rose, paused, then slid down another wall of black water, again and again. Each movement felt steeper than the last. Every few seconds, they expected the raft to flip over. Neither of them could sleep. Every splash sounded like something approaching. Every sudden movement felt like another collision. They had escaped the sinking. But now they faced something even more relentless. Time. Minutes stretched into hours. Hours seemed endless. They checked the sky repeatedly, hoping for the faintest hint of dawn. But the stars barely appeared through the clouds. There was no clock, no streetlights, no familiar sounds, only wave after wave after wave. Psychologists have long known that uncertainty is often more frightening than certainty itself. People can endure incredible hardship when they understand what's happening. But when the brain cannot predict the future, it fills the silence with fear. Every possibility becomes the worst possibility. Every unexplained sound becomes a threat. The mind begins creating dangers faster than reality ever could. And out in the middle of the Pacific, their imagination had an entire ocean to work with. Little did they know, this endless night was only the beginning. When the sun finally rose the next morning, Maurice and Maralyn expected to see something. A ship, an airplane, anything. Instead, the horizon was empty. In every direction, there was nothing but water. The sinking of the Maralyn had happened so quickly that no distress call had ever reached anyone. No one knew their exact location. No rescue mission was racing toward them. They weren't waiting to be found. They had simply disappeared. At first, they believed help would arrive within a few days. After all, they were experienced sailors. Surely someone would notice they had failed to arrive at their next destination. But the Pacific Ocean doesn't work on human expectations. Every sunrise looked almost identical. Every sunset erased what little hope the day had created. Days slowly blended together. Their food supply shrank faster than they expected. Fresh water became even more precious. Every sip required a decision. Drink too much, and tomorrow might become impossible. Drink too little, and dehydration would slowly steal your strength. Before long, survival stopped being about comfort. It became mathematics. Calories, drops of water, hours of daylight, every resource mattered. Fortunately, Maurice had managed to save a simple fishing spear before abandoning the yacht. It wasn't sophisticated, but it gave them one thing they desperately needed: a chance. Whenever fish swam close to the raft, he struck as quickly as possible. Sometimes he missed, sometimes he succeeded. Raw fish soon became breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It wasn't pleasant, but hunger changes the definition of acceptable. Soon, they learned another lesson about the ocean: nothing goes unnoticed. The moment fish appeared beside the raft, something else appeared beneath them. Sharks. At first, there was only one, then another. Soon, several circled below almost every day. Oceanic white-tip sharks are famous among sailors for one unsettling habit. Unlike many shark species that quickly lose interest, oceanic white-tips are incredibly patient. They investigate, they circle, they wait. Sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. Maurice could occasionally see their pale fins slicing through the water only a few feet away. Every movement inside the raft suddenly required caution. Dropping a piece of fish overboard could attract more attention. Leaning too far over the edge suddenly felt dangerous. One accidental fall into the water would almost certainly be fatal. Then came the storms. People often imagine giant waves crashing dramatically against ships. Reality can be even more terrifying. The storm doesn't simply attack once. It continues, hour after hour, sometimes through an entire night. Rain hammered the tiny raft. Wind screamed across the open ocean. Towering swells lifted them high into the darkness before dropping them into deep valleys of black water. Each wave blocked the horizon completely. Each descent felt like falling down the side of a building. The raft bent and twisted under enormous pressure. Maurice later admitted that every major storm forced them to ask the same terrifying question: would this be the wave that finally destroyed the raft? If the answer was yes, there would be no second chance. Yet storms brought one unexpected gift: rainwater. Whenever dark clouds gathered overhead, they scrambled to collect every drop they could. Plastic containers, cooking pots, anything capable of holding water became priceless. The rain that threatened to kill them also kept them alive. Weeks passed, then more weeks. The human body can adapt to astonishing hardship. The human mind is a different story. Without clocks, without calendars, without conversations beyond each other, time slowly lost its meaning. Some mornings, they weren't entirely sure how many days had passed. 20, 30, 40? The numbers became less important than the routine. Wake up, search for fish, collect water, repair the raft, watch the horizon, hope, repeat. Psychologists have studied survivors of prolonged isolation for decades. Whether trapped in polar expeditions, submarines, caves, or drifting at sea, many describe something surprisingly similar. The greatest danger isn't always fear, it's monotony. When every day becomes identical, the brain begins searching desperately for stimulation. Sometimes it creates its own. People hear voices, see lights that don't exist, imagine distant engines, believe rescue ships are just beyond the horizon. Then the illusion disappears, leaving disappointment even heavier than before. Maurice and Maralyn experienced moments like these themselves. More than once, they believed they saw ships, tiny dark shapes on the horizon. They waved desperately, shouted until their voices became hoarse, only to realize it had been nothing more than unusual clouds or changing light. Hope can be a powerful survival tool, but false hope can be devastating. One afternoon, they finally heard it, an airplane. The distant sound grew louder. Maurice fired emergency flares. Both of them waved frantically. The aircraft appeared to pass almost directly overhead. For several seconds, they were certain it had seen them. Then it continued flying, without turning, without slowing, until the sound disappeared. Imagine surviving for weeks, seeing rescue within reach, and watching it vanish into the distance. That moment nearly broke them. Later, Maurice admitted that disappointment was often harder to endure than hunger, because hunger promised nothing. Hope did. Still, they refused to give up. Every morning, they repeated the same silent decision. Not today. Today, we survive. The raft itself became another constant battle. Saltwater weakened the material. Sharp fish spines created tiny punctures. Equipment slowly wore out. Every leak had to be repaired immediately. Every repair consumed valuable supplies. The raft wasn't simply transportation anymore. It had become their entire world. Eventually, even the sharks seemed almost familiar. The same fins, the same silent circles, the same patient presence beneath the surface. It's strange how quickly humans can adapt. Things that once inspired panic slowly became part of everyday life. Not because they were less dangerous, but because fear consumes too much energy. Energy they couldn't afford to waste. Day after day, the ocean tested every limit they had. Their bodies became thinner. Their skin darkened under the relentless sun. Salt sores covered their legs. Simple movements became exhausting. Yet somehow, they kept going. Then, after more than 3 months drifting across the Pacific, something appeared. This time, it wasn't a cloud. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't another cruel illusion. It was a fishing vessel. At first, they could hardly believe it. After so many disappointments, their minds almost refused to accept reality. But the ship grew larger. Crew members spotted the tiny yellow raft. Rescue boats were launched. For the first time in 118 days, another human voice reached them. Maurice and Maralyn Bailey had survived one of the longest recorded ordeals at sea. Their incredible journey would later become famous, not because they possessed extraordinary strength, but because they kept making ordinary decisions. One more repair, one more fish, one more sunrise, one more day. People often imagine survival as one heroic moment. In reality, it's usually thousands of tiny choices repeated over and over again. The ocean never stopped being dangerous. The sharks never disappeared. The storms never became smaller. What changed was them. Their story reminds us that the greatest battles are often invisible, not against waves, not against wind, but against hopelessness, against the quiet voice that whispers, it's time to stop trying. The Pacific Ocean is still there today, vast, beautiful, indifferent. Every year, thousands of people cross it safely. Most will never understand how quickly paradise can become a prison, because the ocean doesn't hate you, it doesn't hunt you, it doesn't even know you're there. And perhaps that's what makes it so terrifying. Nature doesn't need to be cruel to be deadly, it only needs to be indifferent. Out there, darkness isn't just the absence of light, it's the absence of certainty. And for those who have survived a night alone at sea, the sunrise is never taken for granted again. If you enjoyed this story and want to discover more unbelievable true stories from history, survival, and the unexplained, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us here on Enigma Files. Until next time, stay curious.